Okay, brilliant. Welcome. Hi,
Thank
Roz.
you.
Nice to see you.
You too. Thanks, Stephanie. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I've been trying to. It's been in my head, as you know, to do this for ages because it might sound a bit funny to people because what I do is teach people how to reduce, take a break, and stop drinking. But actually, our jobs, careers, are such a huge part of our lives, and I would say it's super common. I haven't done the stats, but I would probably say a third of the people that I work with, once we've sorted the drinking out, it's the job that actually is the problem.
Yeah, and that's not surprising. And I think also lockdown has probably played a big part in that, where people sort of lifted their head above the parapet and gone, yeah, not living to my full potential. So I get that. Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Okay. So, Roz, tell us all about you.
Oh, okay. We'll keep it brief. I am a recruitment director, as well as a career coach, and also the author of Get Your Career Unstuck, which I just constantly have it to hand. There we go. Very exciting. So I hire at all levels across all industries, predominantly in the EMEA APAC space, so international recruitment. Um, and then I career coach predominantly people at that sort of midlife. However, I have noticed there is a bit of a trend that even people in their 20s and 30s, and again I think that's probably down to lockdown, how are reassessing kind of their values and what they want in life. So those are the people that I support who are feeling very stuck.
Yeah. And also you were very humble about that with the book, but you are a bestseller as well, aren't you?
I, I am, thank you. Yes, I do have to keep pinching myself, reminding myself of that. So thank you. Yes, I'm not
Yeah.
probably not so good at kind of selling myself in that respect, but yeah, it was a major achievement, and I was really really happy to get that.
Yeah, and I've had a look at your book and it looks great, Roz. So it'll definitely be something that I'll be recommending because like I said, it's a key part of the work we do. How did you get into this?
In terms of career coaching or writing the book or both.
Both, yeah.
All right. Okay, so career coaching. So I've made several career changes myself before moving into recruitment. I've also gone through redundancy. I've worked in a toxic environment, had a toxic boss. I've even been on the other side of the spectrum where at one point I was in HR and I unfortunately had to make people redundant.
Yeah.
And so as part of that, I had to help people find alternative jobs, redeployment, etc. And then obviously now I'm in recruitment, so I get to do the hiring now, which is exciting. But through that, I've always mentored people in their career. I've always had somebody go, can you speak to my wife or my husband or my child or my cousin? So I've always in some way been involved with mentoring people through their career, and so decided to do a qualification in career coaching. And through that, people said, oh, you should write a book. So it was always in the back of my mind. And then obviously I was introduced to Shah, and yourself and Matt, and that's how you and I met, and wrote it in 90 days. And then, which, yeah, think back to, because it was this time last year, it's crazy when I think about it right now. And then published that through Rethink Press, and that launched in June of this year and made Amazon bestseller, which was really, really exciting. But I think the motivation for writing the book was that I think what I was seeing, particularly in social media, was a lot of, oh, I've quit my job and I'm an overnight success. And there was a lot of, kind of glamorizing career change or just quit. And it's not reality. And what I really wanted to do was to create almost like a blueprint of how to get unstuck when you're really in that space of, I know that the job I'm doing is not what I should be doing. My heart's not in it for whatever reason, but I just don't know how to take that first step, how to take action. And that can be for lots of different reasons, right? But also I wanted to include real life stories of real people like real people, not people on social media stood in front of a Bentley or a private jet going, I quit my job. And I now make
people like me, normal people.
Yeah, I just wanted people who could inspire and motivate the reader to see that there's another way. And so I was very selective in the people that I approached. I was very honored. They entrusted me with their stories, and they are genuinely real people. You know, their websites are in the book. You can go and look them up. And they're people that have come from all different backgrounds, whether it was finance or chefing, and they've gone off to do other things. And they speak quite candidly about, you know, the challenges of doing that, but actually they've no regrets. And so it was really important that I wrote something that was authentic, you know, to help people, because I think when you are stuck, whether it's through redundancy, whether it's you're not enjoying the company that you're with, or, you know, there could be that scenario of golden handcuffs. You're used to a certain lifestyle, you know, and with AI coming, I think, you know, in a recession, I think there's a lot of reasons why people feel stuck in the jobs that they are. So so I wanted to write a blueprint to kind of help people take action and, you know, really motivate them and encourage them that actually it's not all doom and gloom. It's quite exciting opportunity to make that change.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But you're absolutely right. People do get stuck, and that's quite a bit of what I see. That sort of, they're stuck in the daily grind, or they're stuck. It's really interesting, isn't it? The reasons why people get stuck and they feel like there's nothing they can do about it. When actually, I've always thought that the job is one of those few things that we can change in our life. Like if we have a sick child, there's nothing we can do about that. You know, if we have a very unwell partner or a family member, you know, I mean, obviously we have choices about how much time we spend time caring, but there's a lot of obligation and commitment and family and whole heap of icky stuff tied up in that feels, you know, like we have to do stuff. But then when it comes to the job, we can actually get another job or do something different. But people do like just get stuck, like you say, the difficult managers, long working hours, underpaid, or just feeling undervalued. It's really interesting. Why do you think people stay in jobs they don't like?
It's like the big question. I think personally, you know, the education system doesn't prepare us in reality. I think we've been missold a dream that you get an education and that sets you up for success, and you get a job and you should be grateful, you should be happy, and that's your lot. And then one day you get to retire and you enjoy it. And I think there's a stat in my book that says, you know, if you're, you know, born between kind of 1965 and sort of 1980, then the reality is you're probably not going to retire until you're 67, possibly even later than that. And the average life expectancy in the UK is like 72. So the reality is you're only going to get a couple of years to enjoy your retirement. And I think people are starting to switch on to the fact that actually they don't want to wait till retirement to enjoy their life. And there isn't this job for life mentality that perhaps, you know, our parents, our grandparents might have had. But I think people stay stuck because there's a fear of failure, there's a fear of the unknown. Also, if you look at people in midlife, they have caring responsibilities, both for their children who are going off to university, and let's be frank, you know, with obviously, you know, the economy and housing prices, a lot of those kids are graduating and coming back home and living with mom and dad, because they can't get onto the property ladder, or they can't afford the rent. You know, they can't afford to necessarily live in London. So there's been a real wage stagnation as well over the last sort of few years. So there's that side of it. And then, you know, they're also caring for elderly parents. And so you've got, you know, what's called this squeezed generation of people in their sort of 40s, 50s, you know, that are having to push retirement back further and further. So sometimes there's a sense of, I'm unhappy in my job, but the reality is I've got a mortgage, I've got kids, I've got elderly, I have all these responsibilities and commitments. I can't even think about what my needs and what I want. And I, sometimes there's a feeling of guilt or kind of selfishness, because you should be grateful that you've got your lot, because that's what you were taught at school. That apparently is success, right? So I think there's that. I think also people might have a certain lifestyle that they've become accustomed to, and to make a career change later in life, I think there's always the concern of taking a step back. And what does that mean financially? I think there's always a concern about recession and are there jobs in the market? Obviously, the added complexity is AI at the moment. So a lot of companies are all shouting about, isn't it great, we're bringing AI in? But on the other hand, they're not necessarily upskilling their workforce. So I think there's a lot of reasons why people feel almost kind of paralyzed with fear about which route to take. And sometimes there is that, what's termed limiting beliefs, because I think you've been out the market for some time, you're not used to interviewing, you're not used to applying for jobs. I think there's also that kind of sense of, well, would anyone hire me, at this age? So I think there's that element. But actually the reality is, people are living longer. I know there's stats to say that by 2030, something like 30% of the workforce is going to be, under the age of like 30. But the reality is there is going to be a big percentage of the workforce that is ultimately over the age of 50, right? And there aren't people who've retired that are actually returning to work, whether that's through contracting or consultancy, because of the economy. We're seeing prices going up, whether that's utility bills, council tax, house prices just in general. And so some people have had to make that decision to come back out of retirement. So there's a lot of different reasons. But I think also lockdown, as I mentioned earlier, I think played a massive part. I think, even as part of my role, I also look after the intern and grad program. And so it's always interesting meeting them and interviewing them. And I've also done mentoring through the University of Westminster in London. And again, lockdown, a lot of them are saying, I'm not sure if I studied the right degree. I'm not sure I should have even come to university. I'm not even sure I want to go and do a grad program. I'm not even sure if I want to stay in this country. So we're seeing that. We're seeing a lot of intern and grad programs that were cancelled during lockdown. So you've then got this influx of individuals who basically stayed at home for almost a year once they'd graduated. They couldn't go anywhere because of travel restrictions. And so, they've panicked about their CV and about the market and everything, and about what do they want to do. And we're seeing a lot of people now declining offers for grad programs in favor of going traveling. So that's been really interesting. Yeah.
That's it is really interesting, isn't it? It's really interesting times in that, like you say, there's been this massive shift, isn't it? If I think about how I was raised and sort of the generations before me, like you say, it was very much job for life. Well, actually, I was told, this is how bad it was, I was told to do home economics and typing because I was going to leave school and have an office job, and it wouldn't be long before I was going to be married and be pregnant anyway. So what was the point?
There you go.
That was what I was told. There was no point even thinking. And it was just like, oh, great. Hopefully we were maybe one of the last ones to do that. But actually the reality is there is no job for life now. Those final salary pensions, all that type of stuff is gone. And even I've managed teams that have had contracts with final salary pensions. And I tell you what, that some of those people are not happy people. They're just sitting in those jobs waiting out for that, like you say, the golden handshake type thing. They're sort of tied in. So it's really interesting. I love that. Actually, I'm hoping, like you say, that young people are, well, not just young people, everybody is taking the time to think about, well, what do I want to do, and not having to fit into social narratives or molds, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it is an exciting an exciting time. I think, there's a lot more focus now on side hustles and portfolio careers, which didn't exist, when I was back at school. So it's interesting kind of your experience, because, I was first generation university, and it was just assumed I would go to university. I didn't have a say in the matter,
Yeah.
I wanted to do other things, but it was very much, well, you've got the opportunity, you're going to university, and that had been planned, since I was, probably at sort of primary school. My parents, my parents had sort of mapped that out, and that's what was happening. And so off you went, and it was very much beyond that. You then get a job, and you stay in that job, and then you meet somebody, you get married, you get a house, you have the kids, the picket fence, the 2.4 children, the dog, the cat, etc. And that was never really what I wanted. And so I guess in some respects, I was always kind of considered maybe the odd one out, because I was kind of like, well, that sounds quite mundane, right? That's not my idea of what I want to do. And that might change, right, as I grow and everything. So it's I think there's a lot of people that will probably resonate with that. And I think it was very much that if you wanted something out of that normal, you did something different. It was almost considered in some way that you'd failed, I think. And so I think there's still an element of that psychologically in our sort of maybe make up our DNA, that, if you change careers, you're somehow letting your parents or somebody down. And everybody will have a view as well, right? If you suddenly go, well, actually, I want to go self-employed, or I want to do that, there's always going to be somebody that's going, ooh, like you should just stay in your comfortable job and everything, stay in your lane, sort of thing. But I think sign of the times has moved. And I think, again, as I say, I think lockdown sort of really was the catalyst for people going, actually, do I really want this? And no, I don't. And so what's next? How do I get unstuck? How do I make that move and everything? So yeah, and I think it is exciting. I think it's an opportunity. I think that's the thing, is reframing failure as actually opportunity. It's very important.
Oh, 100%. I mean, to me, there is no failure, only feedback. And it's your life, live it your way, isn't it? If you want to go traveling, go traveling. If you want to go to university, go to university. If you don't want to go to university, don't. It's like, there are no rules. Okay, so if somebody's listening to this and they're like, oh God, I hate my job, and they're feeling that, obviously get Roz's book. That's a great starting point. Yeah. And I know you probably can't answer this in 5 minutes. I'm asking the impossible. But what are the types of things that people can do to find a job they love or figure it out?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the first thing is understanding what's holding you back, right? What is this? Is it a fear thing? And there's some great exercises in my book that people can work through. There's some great questions. I think the other thing that's a really nice tool is the job satisfaction tool. And I intentionally included that in my book as well, because I think, again, a lot of people that would come to me will say, well, I feel really unfulfilled in my career, or I hate my job. But those are quite broad statements. With the job satisfaction tool, you can actually start to pin down what are the areas that are making you unhappy. And actually, it might not be that you have to change your job or leave your company. It could be an internal move. It could be, changing skill sets, departments, doing like an internal secondment or something. So there's ways of kind of looking at that. It might just be reducing your hours from 5 days down, So I think that's the other thing, is it doesn't necessarily have to be as drastic as maybe somebody thinks it has to be. However, if you're genuinely absolutely unhappy, is it a case of that it's just moving companies, moving industry, etc.? And that's something we look at. So then it's moving away from understanding what the issue is, the fear, looking at it, assessing one's skills, and determining where that then fits, because then that helps to show the gap and how that gap can be closed. And that might be through job shadowing, mentoring, doing a course, etc. And I think clarifying goals as well, because I think, again, not everybody now is seeing retirement at 67 and doesn't necessarily want to hold out till then. So, there's other options that they might want to be doing. Obviously, becoming a digital nomad now is an option. Do people actually need to be working from the same country, right? So I think it's exploring those opportunities as well, because I think we're very good at sometimes thinking there's only one route. And I think this is where having a career coach is helpful, because ultimately they're going to challenge your thinking, so that you can determine what's right for you. And I think once you've clarified those goals, then an action plan can be put in place. And then it's, looking at leveraging your resources, and your network, because we're all very good at saying, well, we don't know anybody in that industry or this. And then suddenly, actually, once you have a bit of an action plan, you start sitting down and going through it all. It's amazing how you know somebody who knows somebody. So that would be, I would say, a starting point. That would be my advice to somebody.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, that's brilliant. That's a great starting point for sure. And it's that, like you say, it's dispelling those myths, isn't it? And those limiting beliefs and those narratives that, like, when a classic one is, I'm too old now. And it's like, no, you're not, like you say, because the workforce is changing. As time goes on, there's going to be more older people than there is younger people. And unless we sort out the immigration thing, which I don't know I hope we do, but do you know what I mean? We've got some interesting things coming up, haven't we? Definitely in the next sort of 50 to 100 years. But yeah, it is. And when you work with a coach, they can sort of hold that mirror up, just remind you as well, isn't it? Actually, that's not true, particularly when you specialize in certain.
Yeah, and it's funny because even coaches need coaches. So I was at a Women in Business networking event last week, and I got chatting to a woman next to me who is an NLP coach, and she's sort of building her business up and thinking about sort of niching and things. And off the back of our conversation, she actually went and bought my book and then started reading it, and had been messaging me on WhatsApp going, oh my God, this is great. And actually it's just reinforced what I know. And I needed that reminder, because it's easy as a somebody who's a coach and understands how to, use these skills and these questionings to get unstuck. Because you're so close to the bone, because it's you're so emotionally involved, you forget. All of that goes out the window, because we're quite, emotive human beings. So that was interesting to get that message. So I think, even coaches have coaches. I have a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to see it when you're in it, isn't it? And I've just read a book about social narratives, and it literally blew my brains. And it's one of the things that I talk about a lot, is story and narratives, and we are making meaning machines. But listening to this book made me think about so many different things in different ways. It sort of blew my brain a bit, like that. It's like, I thought I was quite good at spotting this stuff, but you can't do it on your own, can you? It just doesn't work. But the book is a great start. Thank you very much, Roz.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I could talk to you forever, because I think jobs and work is so fascinating. And also, I think it's really important, because for those of us that do it, we spend a lot of time doing it. So I want people to be happy doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we spend most of our time there. So absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. I will make sure that I post the links with the book. But if anybody's looking to get hold of you, where's the best place to get hold of you, Roz?
So I hang out a lot on LinkedIn as a recruitment professional. So look me up, Rozalyn Willocks. Alternatively, I do have a website, RosalynWillocks.com. It is a mouthful, my name. It is unusual, but obviously I know you'll post the link so people will be able to find me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Roz.
Smashing. Have a great day.
And you. Bye.
Thanks, Stephanie. Bye.